What is up? My name is Bryan Anthony Davis from Behind the Steel Curtain. I am the podcast producer. Alongside of me are writers turned podcasters Tony Defeo and Shannon White, all of BTSC. We love having those guys aboard, and this is a happy day. This is a happy hangover. Now, this is a different kind of hangover because this is the hangover that everybody's like, this is an escape hangover. There's a lot of people right now that feel like, you know, we won and that's great, but didn't like it. So here's what I always say. I usually use a pie for this, but let's just say, let's call it a Long Island iced tea since this is called the hangover. Doesn't matter what kind of ingredients you put in it. It doesn't matter how it's made, as long as it tastes good and it does what you want it to do. So that's how I feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers 29-27 victory over the Chicago Bears last night at Heinz Field, extending that home winning streak to 19 on Monday Night Football. And Tony, I know Tony remembers this, and Shane, I can tell you exactly where I was the last time the Steelers lost on Monday Night Football. Shane, I don't know if you remember too, but it was against the New York Giants, October 14th, 1991. I was at college at Pitt Johnstown, and I was in a dorm room watching the game on a little TV, and the Giants' Matt Barr, who's a former Steeler, hit a field goal at regulation to beat the Steelers. I think it was 22-20, if I'm not mistaken, and it was very disappointing. Now, it almost happened again last night, and we're going to get into all of that. So, but before that, let's talk about a few things. Yes, we are on early tonight. We're definitely on early, and there's a reason for it. The Monday Night Football game changes everything. We have had a ton of podcasts drop today because we're combining the day after the game and Tuesday all in one. So there was a Mike Tomlin press conference. There's a podcast for that. There's going to be a Scobro show tonight, but we got pushed out because of a football game. For some reason, all of you wanted to watch a football game instead of listen to us. I can't believe it. And I was doing the same thing. I don't want to listen to me instead of watch the Steelers. That's what we're here for. So all the shows, there was an extra Let's Ride today for winners and losers. There was a Let's Ride yesterday. So you got a bonus Let's Ride today. The live mic, the cutting room floor, everything ran today. But there's a lot of content. So make sure you check out BTSC Audio. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, just go in, type in BTSC, and you can go ahead and get it. So there's a lot of things to talk about, gentlemen. But first, let me welcome you. Tony, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm dressed in my running clothes. I'm ready to run through a wall. That's how excited I am about last night's victory.
Now, when you run, do you go through the game, or do you think of other things?
I think about just getting done because I'm not really good. I'm not a great runner, but tonight I'm going to have extra motivation because I'm very happy about this win. So it'll get me through.
You know what? I find sometimes when I need to calm or when I'm alone, I like to fantasize about Steeler games. I mean, I've done this, and it's funny because I've had MRIs before. And when you're in an MRI machine, or an X-ray machine, you're in this closed little tube, and it reminds me of a tunnel. So I will introduce the Steelers in my head coming out of the tunnel at Heinz Field and with the entire lineup. So that's what I do. So I'm always thinking Steelers all the time. Shannon White, what is up, my friend?
I am excited, looking forward to tonight's show, but I'm honestly concerned. I'm concerned about all our faithful followers. Can they handle two Steelers hangover and the Showbro show? Can they handle two in one day like that? There might be too much exemplary content for somebody to absorb in one night.
Too much handsome.
Oh yeah. I mean, gosh, between the five of us, we're January through May on a hot guy calendar of the boys of BTSC.
Beefcake.
Yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. I just think I I have a really weird taste in my mouth after saying that. So yeah, I think they can handle it because this is amazing. And let me talk about this. So we go on a couple minutes after Mike Tomlin ends his press conference, and it's after midnight, and there's 500 live views. We hit 500. We went a little bit over, but about 500 live views checking this out. If they would have lost, there might have been 600. I mean, we always feel like a win is better for numbers on the podcast side, on the editorial side, but you know what? It doesn't matter. Just like the post office, rain, snow, sleet. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're coming to your door, and our fans and the Steeler fans are there no matter what happens. Now, last night, they're not too thrilled about what happened. I mean, I'm going to quote Wes here. This game didn't give me the warm and fuzziness, but a win is a win. I want to start that out because, I mean, that's very true, Wes, and I get it. Let me ask you guys this. With what happened on Sunday, with the Buffalo Bills losing 9-6, I mean, not even a touchdown, 9-6 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Broncos, who have been underwhelming, even though they've won some games early, beating the one-loss Dallas Cowboys. You had other games that, I mean, you had the I don't even know if this was an upset, but the Bengals went down again. You had teams like the Ravens and Chargers stretched to overtime. You had games like that, and the Steelers almost dropped this game as well. Is this the new normal for the NFL? Are the days of the blowouts over, Tony?
I think this is a dream for the league. This is what they've been striving for decades. The whole parity thing, and I think the any given Sunday thing, it's more apt than you think. And I always love quoting this thing I read about Sam White, who used to do broadcast work after his coaching career, and he said when he would study every team's film before each season, you could pick out 2 or 3 teams that were going to win 13, 14 games, and 2 or 3 that were going to lose that many. Everybody else, they were 3 or 4 plays away over the course of the whole year from being anywhere from, this year, for example, 7-10 or 10-7. It's that kind of league for the most part, and I think that's what's on display. So, what I saw last night, I wasn't shocked. That's the kind of team that the Steelers have. That's the kind of roster that they have, and there's nothing wrong with that because that could get you into the playoffs and maybe, who knows, go on a little run.
Shannon, a big lead going into the fourth quarter. And the next thing you know, you're losing with less than 2 minutes left in the game. What were your initial thoughts when they scored that touchdown?
I was actually happy that they scored it so fast.
I was
scared. I was scared it was going to, milk out the clock and Ben wouldn't have any time to try to get them back down the field. So I was disappointed that the defense gave up the touchdown, but seeing how much time was left and still had one timeout in their pocket, I said that's plenty of time for Ben to get them in field goal range, and I have complete faith in Boswell. Mm-hmm. So I was actually happy, as strange as that sounds, that they scored that fast.
I actually was too, and Jeff Hartman talked about this yesterday. Dave agreed. I was thinking the same thing. When Ben trotted out there, I'm like, yeah, there's so much time, and Boswell's going to go ahead and win this. And that's absolutely what happened. Now, when you look at everything, though, giving the ball back, and they had, 30 seconds to go ahead and try to score, and they got really not an incomplete field goal range, but I got nervous because I know we're in Heinz Field. We're watching this game televised from Heinz Field. And when you look at the uprights, the flags weren't moving. Mm-hmm. They were still. And here comes Cairo Santos out to hit a 65-yard field goal. And it was straight. It looked like it was true. And it just bounced. So when you saw that happen, did you feel like the Steelers escaped, or that this is what happens with good teams are going to play good, they're going to play bad, and they're going to get lucky in the same game. Shannon?
Well, the announcer, he actually said it went off the crossbar. And from the angle, the camera angle, it did look like it hit the crossbar on TV, watching at home. And it scared me to death. I thought, man, he just barely missed it. Then you see the replay, and he came up at least 10 yards short. But I don't think you could say they got lucky. Sunday, watched that Josh Allen Buffalo game. Watched Dak Prescott. Watched Matthew Stafford. Watched different quarterbacks that couldn't do what Ben did when they had opportunities. They threw some passes, some interceptions, falling down, just slung it out there, return for touchdowns. Things that if Ben would ever do, they're going to crucify him. I mean, they're going to lose their minds, so many of the fans in the national media. So being able to overcome, it's a there's lessons to be learned from mistakes and from struggles. And if the young guys realize that you can't take any team for granted and you have to, your preparation, as Tomlin always says, if that helps them be able to focus and overcome the struggles, and you still got a win out of it, and being showed and proved why he is an all-time great, and he's still clutch, I don't think it's lucky. I think they earned it, and they overcome their mistakes.
All right. So, Tony, we've got so much to talk about here, but I want to ask you this. Shannon just said Ben is doing things that these other guys weren't doing on Sunday, and he did this on Monday night. So my question for you is, can we finally put to bed and let young Ben, let vintage Ben rest in peace, and right now embrace do it yourself 2.0 Ben?
Yeah, I think that's who he is, and it's not bad. I mean, he's never going to be the guy that he was certainly in the 2000s when he was supernatural and he could do anything. And he's never going to be the guy that he was in 2014, 2015, that era, and when he had AB and Martavis and all those guys, Le'Veon Bell. But if he can continue to learn this offense and get comfortable with this offense and get comfortable with the receivers and trusting his line, then what he gave you last night, that's great. I would take that each and every week, especially with as good as this defense usually is, and with the running game. Last night wasn't a great example, with the running game improving and the line improving. And again, that wasn't a great example last night, but yeah, I mean, some of the throws he made, that back shoulder throw to Deontay Johnson, I think that was spectacular. And the way he moved in the pocket on the first Freiermuth touchdown, I thought that was good to see, that the mobility, and he came within like 2 inches of basically putting the game on ice with that scramble at the end, that rush up the middle for the first down. So I like what I saw from him, and I'm not trying to compare Big Ben of the past to today anymore. I think Tom Brady has kind of made that all like it skewed everybody's perceptions of what quarterbacks can do when they reach a certain age. I'm just happy that Ben is playing as well as he is right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing him get better over the last nine games and just become the best version of himself at the age of 39 as he could possibly be.
Well, when you bring up Tom Brady, and people don't realize this, but Tom Brady died 17 years ago, and he's now animatronic, and they found a way to make him like, what's that called? Like like the robot that Haley Joel Osment
cyborg.
Was in. He's a cyborg, but it was like clone. It was a clone, or there's a movie thing. Gosh, I cannot remember that, but
was Will Smith
intelligent? No, that was iRobot. Artificial intelligence. Okay. Yeah, and then iRobot was Smith. Yeah, I mean, I really think that's the truth with Tom Brady. But let's get back to the Steelers, and I think the thing is, I understand the disappointment, and there's a lot of disappointment in last night's game because you're leading, and then things fall apart, and you're like, oh, they're going to blow it, just like the other teams. The fact that they didn't blow it, to me, shows you what kind of team that this is. warts and all, they're going to find a way to do it each and every time. And that's what they've done for 4 games in a row. Now, Danielle Fedorov says it better than anybody here, and I agree with her completely. I just want a game where I'm not sick to my stomach over a game. And that's it, because that's why I think fans are really upset with this team. They're not loving this week. They completely hate the secondary, and they think the secondary needs to tighten up, and that's true. The offensive line took a step back, and that's true, but there were still times when you felt, all right, this game's in the bag, and they'll be fine. And even when the Bears were coming back, they did something that they couldn't do in week 2 through 4. They sloughed it off and said, all right, we'll take care of it now. All right.
Right.
Hold my beer. I'm coming in. And that's kind of what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tony.
It reminded me an awful lot of the Sunday night game against the Seahawks. Same kind of thing, 14-0 lead, and it kind of got away from them at the end. And earlier in the year, they might have folded, but they showed character by hanging in there and making the plays necessary to win.
All right, so this is the other narrative, and look, I'm going to address it because there's somebody that came in. I wasn't even a Bears fan, but it was a fan of another team, and he was just ripping us like crazy because we weren't talking about the officials' calls, which we did right at the beginning. And if I were a Chicago Bear fan, I would be incensed. The Bears got more calls against them than the Steelers did. Steelers did get some calls against them that were wrong, but the Bears got a lot of them. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Foil King, the Pokemon King, Curtis Marsh. What did you guys see on that? I'm going to start with you, Shannon. Do you feel that he was rightfully flagged?
Well, before I answer that, I was sitting here with bated breath wanting to say something. Ben, if you look back, Ben has the least amount of talent surrounding him, experienced talent that he's had in years. There is no Hines Ward like receiver right now. San Antonio Holmes, AB. You could even say Sanders or Mike Wallace. They don't have certain things that they've always, that experienced line with a Hall of Fame center, or, going to be one day, Lord willing. But he's getting it done with far less talent than a lot of these guys that the national media is in love with. But nobody talks about that. They just focus on his age, and they want him to fit the narrative that they keep putting out there that he's washed up. So, if we're going to be honest about the calls, and I did think there was a lot of bad calls, but we got to be honest about that too. But back to the whole Marsh call. He did go above and beyond his normal celebration. I mean, that was an impressive kick he did. I mean, I'll give you credit. I mean, that was a very nice kick.
That's WWE type stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And he showed,
Bruce Lee.
Hey, that was my former team, and I just sacked, the franchise quarterback and maybe give my team a chance to win this. And he was excited. And I don't think he said anything. He did walk over towards the sidelines, prolonging the celebration a little bit. He was walking on that line because, this year they're calling that stupid penalty. Now, I don't like it, but they're calling it. And, the coaches are telling the guys, kind of control your celebrations, and especially if you're doing it in somebody's face. And the ref took it that he was. I didn't like it. Thankfully, that wasn't the deciding factor in the game. The low block call at the goal line when the guy tried to block TJ Watt was actually a more impactful play or call than that one, in my opinion. But the officiating has just been horrid all year. Most of the time it's went against the Steelers. So I don't see anybody apologizing that this time it went in their favor. Nor should they apologize that they won a close game, whereas the Ravens are praised for it when they do it. Win on a 66-yard last-second field goal. They're praised for their, You know how they're stick-to-itiveness and they fight. When the Steelers do it, the Steelers are just not any good. And any team that the Steelers beat weren't any good or they were injured. It's kind of fitting the narrative right now.
There are, let me throw this out first, because I'm glad you said all that. Viper7290 says, players and teams were informed before the season started that what Marsh did would be flagged for taunting. So I'm going to go ahead back to probably the play that sticks in the craw of Steeler fans more than anything when I just say these words, Jesse James caught that ball. Now, when you look at it, it was the fact that everyone believes that Jesse James caught that ball, but the stupid rule that they put into place is what the problem was. Because of that rule, that's what made that a non-catch. Everybody saw that it was a catch, but the verbiage that they put together, the stuff that they put on paper and in print said that wouldn't be a ball. So the stuff that was put into print this year says that is flagged for taunting. So that's what it is. The Steelers got nailed for a questionable taunting call just a couple weeks ago. I can't remember I think it might have been the Cleveland game. I'm not sure, but there was a taunting call recently that I thought was really stupid. I'm like, you're calling that taunting? But and I can't remember exactly which one it was. But I get it, and this is what they're trying to do. This is what they're trying to stop from happening. Look, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you when I say I didn't like the call. I thought it was a garbage call. Am I going to take it? Absolutely, I'm going to take it. Just like the Green Bay Packers are going to take that win in Week 4 when Minkah Fitzpatrick had a 75-yard touchdown taken back because all of a sudden Joe Hayden was, and I'm going to put the fingers up. I'm not putting the Eli Manning fingers. I'm putting the quotation fingers up. And what I'm saying is, because he was offsides and he wasn't, and everybody knows he wasn't. We can talk about plays that went against them in the Raiders game. We can go talk about plays that went against them in the Cincinnati game. We could also, and as you both brought up, the Ravens game against the Lions. Come on, they did not deserve to win that game, but they're not giving it back.
Nope.
You think Harbaugh is going to say, "Hey, I'll give this one back," just like because they go against you. For every team that has had calls go against you that cost you a game, they've had calls that go for you that won you a football game. And that's the way it is. There's so many different things to look at. Now, Wes brings up the roughing calls. The first uncalled roughing on Fields was the right call. The second one was BS, he said, and it should have been called. I thought the Steelers got a gift on that. But you can still take all the gifts that the Steelers got yesterday, and they pale in comparison to how many gifts other teams have gotten in 2021 against them. I don't have that'd be a good stat geek. We should tell Dave. There's your stat geek this week. But with that being said, they still put themselves in position. The Steelers still got into position to win that game. The Bears, man, I'm impressed with the Bears as well.
Right.
But and it's a shame, but not giving it back. And you can't give it back. But you could look at some other things. There are definitely a lot of things to look at here. And I want everybody to go ahead and check out the Scobro show tonight, because they are going to talk about the difference between watching the TV and listening to the guys from ESPN and being at the stadium. And they definitely they have experience with this, because Big Bro Sco was at the stadium last night and Dave was home in his living room. They watched completely different ball games. The narrative changed because ESPN was trying to tell us how to feel. That's their jobs. I get it. but the narrative really did change. Tate Boys, our good friend Kevin Tate, who has been on many a show here at BTSC and will be on more. I don't think the ESPN knew or offered proper context about Marsh being recently released from the Steelers. Definitely taunting. That's the thing. Yeah, they really didn't. They were more interested in saying that, he was just signed off the practice squad today. I mean, they mentioned it, but they really didn't get into that. So that's really interesting too. And I will say this. If you listen to the Mike Tomlin press conference, because I never did before, and I always do because this is work now, So I listened to the Mike Tomlin press conference. Do you know what his first words were last night? We had it all along. And so I absolutely love it. So I tell you what we're going to do, fellas. We are going to we want to ask you questions. We want you to ask us questions, excuse me. And we're going to do a little Q&A, and we're going to do that right after this when we come back. If you're checking us out on Facebook or YouTube, just take enough time to stretch, and we're going to be blabbing in part 2 for you. All you have to do is turn on over to part 2 if you're listening to, if this is like Wednesday or Thursday and you're listening to us. Some people do that. Some people wait to listen to us. Just go ahead and you're in your car. Just go ahead over. It's just a click over to number 2. You don't have to even download. You don't have to go crazy with it. It's just a click. So that's all you need to do. So we're going to be right back right after this for the second half and the conclusion of the Steelers Hangover Victory Tuesday edition. Welcome back to the Steelers Hangover. I am Bryan Anthony Davis. Alongside me, Shannon Edward White. Don't call him Ted. He'll yell at you. And Tony Julius Defeo. Call him Tony Jules. He loves it. And in fact, I think he got like an Elvis cape with sequins that says Tony Jules, and he goes out to the bars looking for the ladies. Wow, I tell you what, there's a lot of excitement here at the Bad House where everybody is excited. The Steelers won 29-27. They're still celebrating. You hear all that noise. The dogs are barking. The children are dancing. There's balloons. There's a marching band going to go through my living room because everybody is absolutely excited. Did any of you guys take like 9th grade Spanish or Spanish in college or anything like that? Help me out with
9th
this.
and 10th.
Okay, help me out with this. Francisco Lopez Espejel. I have more variety of the offense because there's more variety in the offense because the game is totally predictable. And in the defense moments, and okay, so I can't get that. If somebody can help me out with that. I tell you what, I took 4 years of college and of Spanish in college, and at the end, I was like, "Me gusta toaster," because I wasn't good at it. And I got a Mercy C because the professor knew I was coming back because I just needed that class, and he's like, he didn't even. There's no way I deserved a passing grade in that class, but he was like, "Yeah, we're giving this guy a C plus just to get him out of here," and I think I got a good one. So I am not going to be a translator anytime soon. I tried. I was close. There's offense and because and punt and predictable. So I mean, I think there's some things, but if somebody could help me translate that, I'll leave that up a little bit here. But fellas, so this was a fun game, but there's things to be worried about. So I'm gonna throw out a few to you guys. Should we be worried about Najee Harris in the running game? Shannon?
Harris is doing everything he can. The line took a step back. They took a step back because Moore was getting abused, and Green still struggles with power, with size, because he gives up a lot of times 20, 30 pounds or more, and he was struggling, to just fulfill his responsibilities last night in open lanes. Harris was running into his back or for a lot of the plays. So Harris I've said all along, Harris can only do what the offensive line allows him to do. Same thing with Ben. And they took a step back. I still think it's too early to try to make changes. But if that continues, then you're going to have to start looking at Banner and maybe moving a core four over. But I still wouldn't do it yet. But they definitely had a bad game. They'd been trending up, and they went backwards yesterday.
Tony, why do you think that they went backwards yesterday? And is Moore safe?
I think he is. He's a fourth round pick. As somebody said in the live chat, it's going to be baptism by fire for him most weeks. He's just gonna have to take his lumps, and same with Kendrick Green. He's a smaller size center. Obviously a core force had his issues. Dawson's a second year guy. So and they're all still trying to find a way to work together. So it's just going to be an up and down process. I think Tomlin kind of alluded to that in his press conference on today. It's something you have to get in there and again take your lumps and try to grow as an individual player and grow as a unit. But what I like about last night, speaking of the running game, wasn't a great night for the running game, really at all. It was 2.6 yards to carry, whatever it was, but they stuck with it. And Najee had 22 carries, and if you throw in the 3 or 4, however many jet sweeps that they had to the receivers. So at least they stayed committed to the run, and despite the fact that it really wasn't working. In the past, they may have totally abandoned it, and it just would have been bending the shotgun, throwing it 50, 60 times. But you didn't see that last night. So that's what I like about it. It wasn't a great night, but Harris still ran hard. He still moved the pile. And he still contributed, total from scrimmage 80 yards, which isn't a lot. But I like the fact that they stayed committed to it, despite the fact that it wasn't working.
I thought Najee really came off yesterday as even more important to this team. And you can see what was happening. The guy's a battler, and I've said this all year. I'm going to say it again. This is a man that's taken 4-yard losses and making them sometimes into 1-yard gains. And that's the true glory of Najee Harris and what he's doing. I like what you said about them not abandoning the run with the jet sweeps and the trickery. And that is starting to be Matt Canada signature coming through. And the nice thing about that is the fact that the Steelers were over 100 yards rushing. And I believe Dave Schofield said yesterday, it's like 21, 22, and 0 in the last 22 games when the Steelers rush for over 100 yards as a team. So that's something that I'm really excited about too. I was asking for help with translation. Manuel Lopez LaCroix, translation: offense needs more variety, too predictable, and the defense just folds at times. Thank you so much, Manuel. And thank you for the original. And it was Francisco Lopez. Espejel, who gave us the original question too. The original comment too. So I do appreciate that. So Wes asked this question, guys. And then he says, what will it take for Ray to get cut? Clarence Washington says, cut Ray now at Wes. So not loving Ray McCloud. Have we, and I am not, I'm not saying this, but this was Ray's first fumble in a long time. And I'm not discounting people being upset with Ray because he's not doing anything spectacular. But is he doing anything that, besides that fumble, is this a knee-jerk reaction to a mistake? Or am I missing some things here? Is he doing less than what is desired? Because I tell you what, he had a first down yesterday that after that was really important to this team as well. So help me out with Ray here, because I don't think he's a great return man. I don't think he's great, but I think with the exception of yesterday, there have not been a lot of errors. Or am I wrong? Shannon?
Ray, he's been a reliable kick returner, punt returner. I think he might be like top 10 in both categories. Nothing spectacular, but he had avoided the big mistakes this year. Last year, then he kind of went in the tank after that. So it was good to see him make that catch and get that first down later because, that can easily happen and the guy loses his confidence and you have to have it to play that position. I'd rather not see him having that many reps in the regular offense. But they don't, right now, you can't run Washington out of the slot because he doesn't get separation. And McCloud can, but he's just such a diminutive target. They have Anthony Miller on the practice squad, and I expect them to consider bringing him up this week, especially if Claypool's injury turns out to keep him out for a little bit. But I don't want to overreact about McCloud, but you cannot put the ball on the ground in that situation. That opened the door for that whole comeback by totally flipping momentum, and you just can't have that right there.
Tony, so Brian Brown says Ray has been returning kicks for a while. He fumbles one time and suddenly he has to go. Really averages 20 yards return. Vaping All Day says Ray is still better than what else we have. I haven't been too happy with him either, but what else do we have? And it was also brought up by Holden that, he fumbled last week, but it was recovered. So I want to bring that up as well. That happened as well. So, Tony, what are you looking at with Ray? Is there somebody else out there that they can go ahead and pull in? Or, I mean, you're not going to take somebody off the couch better than Ray right now. Or do you just have Danny Smith Jr. work on him with adjustments and holding onto the ball? I mean, do you do the Omar Epps treatment and like in the movie The Program and give him the ball and he's punished if you smack it out of his hands?
Well, I mean, first of all, how to fair catch, because in the game, there's 6.5 minutes left. You're up by 10. You just catch. It's situational awareness, situational football. Mike Tomlin talks about it all the time. You don't have to make a spectacular play right there. You just basically have to secure the ball and give it back to your offense. Then 2 or 3 or 4 minutes off the clock, and boom, pretty much game over. So, first of all, we should just call for a fair catch. I mean, he saves everybody and himself a lot of heartache, a lot of nerves, a lot of anxiety if he just fair catches right there. You don't. Back in the day, they used to put, was it Milwaukee Moore? They would just put him back to just a fair catch, so because they knew he was going to be safe, and I think that's what Ray needed to do there. I'm not looking for him to get cut. I don't think he should get cut because, like you said, who are you going to find that's better than him off the couch right now? But at the same time, you have to be smart there, and you have to know. And the way Mike Tomlin reacted at last night's press conference after the game, you could tell he was not happy with his young punt returner, and he's gonna. I don't know if he's gonna give him the Omar Epps treatment, but he's definitely gonna teach him about situational awareness, situational football, because he needs to learn that at this point.
Oh, he said it was unacceptable in the press conference. That was something. It's different. Says his decision making is a little suspect. That's all. So we're gonna throw in your questions. We're gonna do some Q&A here. Brad Martin says, at what point do you talk about gifts from refs? That's something we've already discussed. And if you did miss it already, the Steelers got gifts yesterday. But if you look at 2021 as a whole, they had more games affected by gifts for the other team than Chicago did yesterday. So I go back to the Green Bay game. Go ahead, Tony.
Well, I just want to touch on the Cassius Marsh thing, and it's a stupid penalty. It's a stupid rule. I don't care what anybody says, but I'm glad it happened and such a high-profile thing. I'm glad it happened and not happened to the Steelers, because I want the NFL to see just how dumb a play this is, and maybe they'll give it the pass interference replay treatment from a couple years ago and just quit calling it, because you can't have games altered or potentially altered because some guy decided he wanted to posture, as the referee said, posture towards his opponent's sideline. It's just there's no reason for games to be ruined because of this kind of stuff. So I'm glad it happened, because the NFL deserved for it to happen. They deserve to have something like this happen in a high-profile game or situation and have the whole country talking about it.
Wes says Steven Sims is on our practice squad. Yeah, that's maybe he gets some more action in the practice bubble this week and they start looking at him. I mean, they do have guys on the practice squad for that reason. Somebody said, hey, you gonna bring in OBJ. I don't think he's gonna be returning. And I really don't want you to do that. I don't think they want to do that. I don't think anybody wants that. Felicia says, okay, do you want our Switzer again? That's a good comment because here's the difference between Switzer. If you could combine Switzer and Ray, you go take Switzer's hands and Ray's speed. Man, you probably have a Pro Bowler. And this is something that the Steelers knew coming in when he came in from Buffalo, that he didn't have hands. That was something that Jeff Hartman talked to somebody from Buffalo when they first got him. And he said, yeah, he does put it on the floor a lot, the floor of the ground. Ryan O'Toole, love the pick of Freiermuth with Heath Miller. Epic. So I unveiled my new nickname, Pat Freyer Heath. Is that any good, guys? Or
I mean, it's pretty good. I like it. It doesn't roll off the tongue, but we'll get you. But you could use it in so many different ways when you're at the stadium, calling out his name.
I can't let this one go. Is Joe Flacco still elite? Says Patty Man. No.
Wow.
Enough said. This is a game that I think when this happens, a game like this, it could always be a good thing. Because when you survive a scare, it could be anything. Think about you in your regular life. You survive a scare because you did something wrong, or whether it be any kind of scare. There's so many different scares that you survive, and you're like, I'm going to do some things different. And do you think that they look at this and say, all right, it's time to buckle down, guys, batten down the hatches, and let's just play smarter? Tony, do you think that this is a perfect coaching opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, because everybody's talking about how ugly the win was with the Cassius Marsh penalty in the penalty earlier in the game, but just a perfect teaching moment. If Ray just calls for a fair catch there, this is probably a 23-13 game final score, and you're talking about how sloppy it is. You're talking about how they kept they kept it close. The Bears kept it close, and they came back a little bit in the second half. But they're not talking about how the Steelers escaped and how they got away with one, and oh my gosh, so. That one play right there probably changes the entire complexion of the end of that game and people's perceptions afterwards.
Clarence Washington says this, and I'm just going to laugh at it. It's really funny. Marsh was not taunting. He was telling them that he had the new Pikachu Pokemon card. And so I guess he was just marketing his business. That's true, Clarence. I love it. Wes says, it's not so much that I want Ray cut. I want him to play smarter. Yeah, that's true too. Definitely want them to play smarter. And this is still a very young team. And we see an offensive line that finally started putting it together. Did they get full of themselves, Shannon?
It's hard to say that they got full of themselves. I think that, halfway through the season, a lot of rookies start feeling the wear and tear and the pressure of the NFL season, because in the collegiate season they're about done or preparing for a ball game, and they've had more time off, and so I think you might be seeing, especially Dan Moore, seems to kind of be wearing down a little bit. Last night he was beat twice on just straight speed rushes, and he's been doing pretty good on that. He struggled with some bull rushes at times, but he's handled the speed element pretty well till last night. So I don't think they were getting ahead of themselves, or they might just be wearing down a little bit. So that's something that the coach is going to have to decide what's the best plan moving forward.
Tony, we're going to be asked to be doing staff picks this week, like we always are. And we're going to be asked to pick this upcoming game with the Detroit Lions and the Pittsburgh Steelers, one that I will be in attendance for. I'm taking Dave Schofield's seats this week, and I'm going to be there, and I'm taking my nephew. His 15th birthday is coming up. It's a week from now. Actually, it's a week from Sunday, and the Steelers are playing in Los Angeles, and I'm like, dude, I'm not taking you to LA for your birthday. Maybe later, maybe when we can enjoy LA a little more, but I'll take you to the Lions game. Is this a trap game, Tony?
No, I mean, I don't. I think the Lions they've played some close games, but it's almost like they've started to give up. But like I said, I don't expect the Steelers to go out and beat them 45-0. When people say trap game, I think you know, it's more like maybe something that the teams from the earlier part of the last decade, like the mid part of the last decade, where there was really good teams, they might have been, they would succumb to those kind of games. But this team, I don't think it. I'll quote my bowling buddy from Sunday night: "You can't trust the Steelers against any team because the gap isn't as great as we like to admit." So I guess I answered the first part wrong. I don't think they're going to be looking at them as a trap game. I think they have so many young guys on this team, especially on the offense, that they're going to be trying to work on their details, especially the offensive line after Monday night. So I don't think they're going to go in there taking the Lions lightly. But it doesn't mean that they're going to, even if they don't take them lightly, that they're going to just blow them out of the water, because I don't think they have that kind of team. But I don't think it's a trap game.
So Shannon, a double-digit win, would that do a lot for the Steelers, or would it be the fact that, hey, you just beat the Lions by double digits and you should? Or does it matter, or does a eking out a win like they did last night by surviving a 65-yard attempt, if that happens again in the Detroit Lions, should we panic or just celebrate the victory?
Again, at this point of the season, I'm more interested in seeing steady improvement. Last night, there was, again, some players took steps back, especially the offensive line. The slot position, which is a slot by committee on defense, it seems like they were getting caught with Millette, who does a really good Mike Hilton impersonation, but he also has the same weaknesses that Hilton has. And if we're going to be doing straight coverage, I'd rather see Sutton in the slot and Pierre in there, or at least Norwood, than I would Millette matching up with Robertson, the Bears receiver, deep downfield like that. So I think that this week coming up, the Detroit Lions, they really give the Rams a game. And if you watch that game, they did 3 trick plays in the first half, and they actually had the lead at one point. And then, of course, after the Rams settled down and everything, the Rams beat them pretty handily. But it was a lot closer than everybody thought. They have nothing to lose, so they still ought to expect that, whether it be trick plays, going for it on fourth down, whatever. The way this team's structured, I don't see them blowing out anybody. Right now, they're trying to get their offensive identity, and that identity is ball control, running the ball with Harris and having men be efficient. They said it was the first time he's won 4 games in a row without throwing an interception. Now, there's been some close calls in there, but every quarterback has those. So he has done a better job of protecting the ball. So I don't expect them to blow out Detroit unless Detroit just still score a defensive touchdown or 2, maybe that way. But this offense just needs to continue to improve each week and win the games to remain, playoff relevant.
Very good. I do like that answer as well. So we have a super chat from our good friend Ryan O'Toole. $5. Thank you so much for the contribution. With awful officiating, millions made in betting now, and current congressional attention, do you see a sky judge coming sooner than later? You know what? They flirted with that. Right now, no. I mean, it might happen, but I think that after that experiment that you had in 2019 with being able to try to overturn a pass interference, that I think that they're giving up on that. And I don't feel like the officials, for some reason, were ever behind that whatsoever, and they made a mockery out of it. We saw that in the Seattle game when the Steelers lost to Seattle. In week 2, they lost Ben Roethlisberger, but they lost that game with an egregious penalty that was not overturned, and everybody in the booth thought it was going to be overturned. But they just wouldn't do it. That happened very little, and it's almost like we said, hey, we don't like, the referees got together, we don't like this rule, we're going to call it our way. And then they got rid of it, so they gave up on it. So I don't think a eye in the sky is going to happen anytime soon, because I think they would rather have close games and controversy. They are looking for the WWE satisfaction. I'm not saying that it's fixed, but when I watch wrestling, every once in a while, I want to see a squash match where, like, just like in a Super Bowl, like every once in a while, you see in a Super Bowl where the team dominates and they win. I don't need it to come down to three pins, almost pins, 3-2 counts, and next thing you know, you finally get a fluke amazing win. And that seems like what's happening here. And I think a lot of the calls are meant to keep viewership in the fourth quarter up there. Am I saying that that's a fix? No, I'm just saying that a lot of these are judgment calls, and those judgments go in a way to keep a more exciting product on the field. And that is a problem with this game. So I don't really think that they want that. Tony?
Well, I mean, a sky judge is still going to be run by a human being, and you have all these officials, or I'm sorry, all these rules that the NFL throws at these officials each and every year. So you're going to have a lot of things for them to have to interpret, even from the sky. And like if people say you can call holding on every play, you can call pass interference on every pass, just about, and what, for example, Cassius was taunting by the letter of the law. So when these officials are calling penalties that are actually penalties, even if it's at the wrong time in the game, and to the taste of many of the fans, I don't know how you can say it's rigged. Maybe there's just too many rules that these officials have to deal with, and they're too afraid to not call them because they don't want to be scrutinized and maybe voted by the league. So I don't see an eye in the sky, because it would still be a bunch of stuff that they would have to. It's still a human error would be involved.
Shannon, your thoughts?
Like Tony said, it still comes down to human error. It's human opinion. I like the one long catch that the Bears had. The guy, he had the ball like this, and then he had the ball like this, and then he had it on the back of his hand, and then when he hit the ground, he drops the ball. Compare that to the Jesse James catch that we had talked about earlier in the show. Thankfully they've kind of did away with that, and it's a little clearer now what's a catch and what ain't. But the last night, and it's happened a lot against the Steelers this year because of how explosive TJ Watt is and Alex Highsmith. These tackles are they're false starting. They're cheating. And you see it. I mean, they cheat way worse than Hayden was offsides in that Green Bay field goal. They're cheating they're starting back out of their stance before the ball snapped. And they did it a lot last night. And how many times was it called? A couple, but they were doing it throughout the game. If you also go back and review the tapes, especially during the 4-game winning streak, cornerbacks are coming up, jamming Johnson and Claypool at the line, and they're holding them.
Yeah.
And interfering them, keeping contact with them 20 yards downfield. They never break contact, and they're not called. There's not passing being called. So officiating is bad, but it's bad all around, and I think it's going to stay that way because of human error.
And that is what's happening. I mean, there were calls that went against the Steelers yesterday. More went against the Bears, and we know that. I mean, there's no denying it. But it's interesting to see what would have and should have really happened in that game if that game was called right the whole day. Bert Tavares asked, any news on Claypool MRI? I have not heard anything as of yet. Mike Tomlin brought it up right away that he was going to be having an MRI, and nothing has come back as of yet. So that's something you really want to look at.
They said it was his toe. Toe injury, yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen what toes can do. And I tell you what, I had turf toe right after New Year's, and wow, it took a while.
Yeah.
It didn't ruin my 40 time, but but no, it definitely took a while. So I tell you what, one last thing. I think there was one more question in there that I thought was interesting. Nah, I think I got it. But you know what? This is the game we love. I don't think we're really stopping it, but it really gets it really gets interesting when you have games like this ending this way. So, this is just a different NFL than what we grew up with. Tony and Shannon, I'm sure you can agree. If there was 5 minutes left in the game and you were down by a touchdown, that was it.
Yeah,
it was very rare that you were going to come back in the 80s.
Right.
It was just a different style of play, a different style of football. Now you get 36 seconds back. You get a kickoff 36 seconds back. You've got a chance to at least tie it with a field goal or even win it with a touchdown. Most likely a field goal, but it's a really interesting brand of football. But the last thing I'm going to say about everything is the Steelers, they are survivors more than anything because they were 1-3. They were counted out. People were saying, lose the rest of your games and play for a draft pick. Now they are one of the hottest teams in the league with 4 straight wins. Even though it's not sexy, they're available when they're there, and they're there every night and every week. So it's something that you look at right now that you're like, all right, this is my team. This is my team with warts, but this is my team that is still giving me the satisfaction of a win every single week for the last month. Well, actually 5 weeks. So with Detroit this week, I think a lot of us would love to see a blowout win, a definitive win, just so we could relax and feel even better about our team. But like Tony said earlier, this is not how this team is built. This is not the offensive game plan. This is not actually the offensive blueprint of this team and not the makeup of this team. So this is what you have. And when you look around the league and you look at the Kansas Cities that are lower in the standings than the Steelers, and you look at teams like Buffalo, who's right now, if it wasn't for the fact that the rest of the East stinks, Buffalo and Pittsburgh, if this was a wild card situation and equal, Pittsburgh's ahead of them in the standings because they have the same record, and the Steelers have that head-to-head win. So a lot of interesting things. I mean, you could even look for the fact that a team like Buffalo with a team like New England coming on, they could be in the wild card situation real soon because they're starting to come on. So, the bottom line to it is you have unconditional love for a team. They could frustrate you. Let's just put this in my terms. I frustrate the heck out of my wife. I'm not easy to live with because I'm kind of an idiot. And I know that. She would not trade me for anything. And she tells me that. And I appreciate that. But she has unconditional love, but I frustrate the heck out of her. So with that being said, I think that's what the Steelers are. They're going to frustrate us, but at the end of the day, we're always going to love them, and we're always going to find a way to trust them. So, Tony, Shannon, it was a good night. We do appreciate you. Make sure that you guys check on the Scobro show tonight. It's going to be a very good show. There are more shows dropping, lots of shows dropping today because of the Monday Night Football game, but the schedule is going to get back to normal come tomorrow. So get ready for that. With that being said, just when you think you've got all the answers. Tony?
We keep changing the questions.
Mr. White? We will see you next week on Monday, regular scheduled time. Hopefully, we are celebrating a good hangover if the Steelers keep trying to beat the Lion. We'll see you.